subscribers, so I'll give you a moment to get yours. I just wanted you to know that I am currently taking personal readings. So if you go to rotation411.com, I have several packages there for tarot. If you order a tarot package, what I do is a quick video, about a 5-minute video. And I'll send you the link in your email and get back to you. I think you can order like 3 at a time or 1 at a time. So just an FYI, because I don't put it out there that much because I do work on several platforms. Also, just a quick update before we jump into, I got cut off, I think it was about 2 days ago when I was talking about Venus, Mars, and the moon compatibility. So I'm just going to quickly kind of go over what I was saying there, because it got lost at the very end. But also divinetimingdatabase.org. Now, if you submit, you can instantly run your matches and you can instantly be connected if you have one. So it's a big change that's been happening over the last month or so. And it's all ready now. There's like one button that I'm working on with the developers to try to make it a little bit nicer for you guys. Because right now the message button's kind of over here. So if you get a match and you go to their profile, you'll be like, okay, do I click this? So I want to make it a little more obvious for you. But other than that, it's very user-friendly now, and it's also on the Android store. So check it out. You can go to divinetimingdatabase.org and download it there, or click over to the Android Play Store. It'll be coming out on Apple this year sometime. There's some updates that have to be done there. So with that being said, just quickly, back now, my light's dying, you guys. Quickly going back into what I was saying, I'll link it, I'll pin it in the comments, but I was talking about the other day, quick synopsis of moon to moon compatibility and Venus to Mars, and then I got kind of muddied at the end because I tripped up on myself. If your Venus and Mars are both in a masculine or feminine polarity, then it's going to be a little bit easier for you to find love, and I was kind of talking about me having a grand cross makes it quite challenging, because people that are harmonious with this opposition are in square to this opposition and opposite everything else. So, some of us do have a little bit more challenging charts when it comes to finding the one or someone to be compatible with. And that's why the Divine Timing Database is so great, especially for you, those of you. And I'm sure a lot of us feel that way these days because we run into those, flingy Mars square Jupiter energies quite a bit. But with that being said, I just basically was saying that aside from Venus and Mars being in a sextile, trine, or conjunction, which would mean that they're in the same polarity, either masculine or feminine, which is like how we like to have the moons. Aside from that, whether this would apply or not in that scenario, because it really depends. If your Venus and Mars are, say yourself in like Aquarius and Aries, those are masculine signs. So if they're both in a masculine sign and they're both in a feminine sign, then you would just want to find someone who has also both of their Venus and Mars in either masculine, if that's what you have. So if you have Venus in Aries and Mars in Aquarius, and they have Venus in Leo and Mars in Aquarius, that'd be Mars conjunction and a trine or sextile there. So for you guys, it might be a little bit easier to find love in general, or to find this in a chart with someone if they indeed also have their Venus and Mars in the same polarity, and it's the same polarity as yours. Now imagine you have Venus and Mars in, like, let's say Aries and Aquarius, which are masculine signs, and then they have Venus and Mars in Pisces and Cancer, which are feminine signs. You might have a challenging time, even if your moons are both compatible and you don't have any deal breaker or divorce aspects. Your love languages, that's Venus, are going to be completely different. The things you value will be very different. I love Venus and Leo, my favorites. They're very warm and affectionate, but with a Venus and Pisces, it is exalted, so it does have some grace there. It feels like the value system is just very different. And I know I did a video extensively talking about Venus and the value system. And some of you have been writing me comments telling me videos to do, and I've been making a list. Someone asked me to talk about the 12th house. Somebody asked me to talk about Pluto on the ascendant. So this week I am going to get into the psychic placements, which would be like the water signs and the planets that rule them. And so we'll get into that this week. I don't want to go on too long here, but like, for example, Pluto, Neptune, and the moon rule Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. Yes, all signs have some psychic validity to them, but the water signs are probably the most tapped in and fluid with it, just inherently. So I'm going to do like a psychics placement video this week, and we'll get into that. We might do a few parts to that. So with that, and the ascendant, the IC, the 12th house and the 8th house are in the are going to be the most important there, like the fourth house, the first house. And also Aries, you know, is the emperor and rules the crown. So in every element does, you know, a lot of air signs get a lot of stuff going through their brains as well. But again, so with that being said, I just want to get into, just as a bonus, because I didn't realize I would cover the, I didn't realize I would sort of cover that synopsis of the last video that quickly. I wanted to talk about quincunxes. Now, these are soft specs, and for a long time, and still, it's kind of like when I'm looking at, so people are always like, well, I don't have the birthplace or the time. And I'm like, that's fine. If you have any hard aspects together, it's not going to work anyways. And I can look that up quickly with just the month, day, and year. But it's so that's how I'm sort of going to equate like the major aspects, which would be a square, a conjunction, a trine, a sextile. Those are sort of the major hard angles that give us, well, hard angles, major angles in geometry and astrology that, you know, really, if you're making contact in one of those angles, like for example, an opposition is 180 degrees. A conjunction would be approximately 360 degrees because they're sitting together, you know, all the way around back to you. A sextile is, I always space this stuff, it's like 60 degrees and a square is 90 degrees or something like that, okay? So with that being said, those kind of contacts are the most important, but I've told you, because people have come to me and asked me like, oh, we have a semi-square, or we have, you know, and we did find the semi-sextiles to be very important in moon compatibility. If it's in an exact orb, like 1 to 2 degrees, it's the one thing that can trump the moons not being in the same polarity. So that is significant, even though it's just a soft little semi-sextile, this soft aspect, okay? So I told you guys, as you know, as I learn and discover, I find out more and more. So I'm going to equate the soft aspect, or the minor aspects, we'll call them, because we have semi-squares, which would be like a minor hard aspect, and semi-sextiles would be like a minor soft aspect. So in the minor aspects, I'm going to equate that to sort of the flavor that we get when we're looking at the house system, you know, but it's kind of like, you know, it's sort of like the nouns, right? So if we look at your planets, we're in your sun, moon, and rising, we're seeing that we have a piece of paper, we have some coloring crayons and a coloring book, okay? And we have ourselves to color. It's like the fundamental needs, and very important, because you can't color without them, okay? This is a weird analogy, but I'm going to run with it. So when we're looking at the house system, it's like, okay, now we have the picture. We've chosen which page. We see the outline clearly of the picture that we're going to color in. And then when we get into, you know, and that's a given, that's a solid. Once we start coloring in, you know, that's the outline. So we have like the basic fundamental needs to get the job done, which would just be our you know, planets basically. And then we have the, it's not so much a choice, but we have the page that we're going to color on. We have the whole outline, you know, that black outline of what you're going to color in, and that would be your house system. That's also a given. That's not, in this scenario, we chose it, but you know, you've been told you have to color this page in your life, okay? So with the soft aspects, minor aspects, excuse me, are basically sort of the colors that of crayons. Say you have a box of crayons and it's got 50 colors and they're all pastels or they're all bold, you know, that's sort of going to be the flavor of these softer aspects. So they're just sort of giving us a clearer and clearer picture, you know, of the finished product of, you know, our whole life's completion, let's say. So with that being said, we went into the semi-sextile quite extensively with the moon aspects. I'm not going to go into it today, but if any of you want me to kind of go into that again, you know, write a comment below and I'll pop on and do it. But the semi-square is 100 and, not semi-square, the quincunx, okay? So, the semi-sextile and semi-square are sort of like visible in between the square and the sextile. Okay, so I can't remember the angles right now, you guys, I'm losing you, but I know that the quincunx is a 150-degree angle. And so I want to teach you guys a quick trick really quick on how to know, that was kind of a tongue twister, on how to know if it's a quincunx sign. And the interesting thing is, before I get to the trick on how you'll know, you know, if you're dealing, you kind of have to know the order of the signs, but if you know that and you know like your oppositions, you can do it very quickly. but it is interesting to me because as an Aries, for example, I do have a Virgo moon, so I always equated my strong connection with Virgos to that, you know, sun moon type of flavor there. And then I also found, and this has been true across the board, not just for myself, that Aries and Scorpio go very well together. And that's very weird because, you know, they're just very different signs. Scorpio is a fixed sign modality. It's feminine, it's water. You know, water can tend to put out fire like a Pisces and an Aries, even though those surprisingly go well together too, being next to each other. Probably a lot of semi-sextiles there, you know. But they're very different signs. You know, Aries is fire and it's a masculine sign. You know, it's at the beginning of the zodiac. It has different motivations than Scorpio. Scorpio's kind of, well, it's interesting because Aries is like birth and Scorpio is rebirth. So there are some commonalities there. But, you know, Scorpio has a lot more in common with, let's say, Taurus or Cancer or Pisces than it does with Aries. And the, you know, if we check off all the similarities. Anyways, so with that being said, you know, I had equated it to rulership. You know, you'll find Libra and Taurus together a lot because they have Venus rulership. But, you know, and it can work to an extent, but ultimately that's definitely not going to determine it. It can help smooth it out, almost like a Venus conjunct Venus type of aspect, like really draw them to each other. So when we have Aries and Scorpio, we have them both ruled by Mars. So I always equated, you know, my strong compatibility with Scorpio, or anytime I see it. Because the thing I found as an Aries, just bumbling along, when I bump into a Scorpio, they either automatically hate me, hate my guts, could be the Libra rising, even though that's a semi-sextile, or they really take to me. We have a very deep bond and we're, you know, you wouldn't guess that we'd ever be friends, but it's one of my best friends in the whole world. And even if their lives are very different than mine, we get along very well. So with that being said, when I came across this Quincunx, and man, I don't think I'm going to go into it today, but I basically came across it because I had found this sort of key in my birth chart for the Grand Cross. And I had thought about it in the last year. And then I was talking to this great astrology programmer, and I might have mentioned this before. And he goes, well, tell me what you think about this Quincunx you have in an exact degree here with Pluto to Jupiter. And it was so weird to me because that key that I had found was my second house in Pluto to my seventh house in Aries, which I was going back to that rulership I just went off on of Mars, that this was some sort of tie. And then he shows me, no, you have an exact degree Quincunx here. And remember, with the minor aspects, the tighter the orb and degree, the more exact it is, the more you're going to feel it. So he actually pointed that out to me, and I said, that is so bizarre, because I had just made some weird connection with rulership between my second house and my seventh house. So I'm not going to go too much into that today, but if you guys want to hear about like my little personal master key to my transmuting the Grand Cross in my birth chart, you know, write in the comments below. I won't bore you guys with my stuff. But with that being said, you know, I see you guys popping in and out of here, and sometimes it doesn't actually tell me the right number, but I figured out a trick while I was meditating all of this. So I'm going to make it short today, unless you guys write in the comments and ask me anything. But a trick to know if you have the signs that are Quincunx to you, or say you're looking at a planet. Maybe you have your Mars in Leo, and you're like, I wonder, this person's Mars is in this sign, and I'm trying to figure out that thing she said about the polarity. I wonder, you know, is that a Quincunx? Here's a quick way to kind of know as you're meditating on aspects. I know some of you aren't quite that advanced yet, but these little sort of things sometimes can help things click as well. So an opposition is 180 degrees. So if you kind of know the layout of just the basic signs, you know, Aries through Pisces, you might have a good idea of the wheel and the oppositions to everything. So if you have that idea, like if you know you're an Aries and your opposite sign is a Libra, then it's 180 degrees. Well, the Quincunx signs are 150 degrees. Well, signs are 30 degrees apart. So the Quincunx signs to you are going to be the two neighboring signs to your opposite sign. Okay, kind of the same as your semi-sextiles are going to be the two neighboring signs to your own sign. So for example, I'm born April 11th, my father was May 11th. We have a pretty much exact semi-sextile from Aries to Taurus. Those are neighboring signs. It took me many years too to understand why the neighboring signs seem to go together so much. And then I had the theory that it's because the personal planets stay close to the sun. So if you're an Aries sun, you're most likely going to have your Venus or your Mars can kind of go two signs out, but you're most likely going to have your Venus or your Mercury in Pisces or Taurus or Aries, okay, or in that sign. So that's a semi-sextile or a conjunction. But here's a little bit of a trick, and this can happen too. And you guys ask me sometimes, so I'll just touch on it briefly since I have a bit of time here. Let's say your sun, we'll just use the suns to keep it simple. Let's say your sun is like 2 degrees Aries and somebody's sun is 28 degrees Leo. On the angles, that can sometimes read as a square because it's like a 5-degree overlap between like Cancer and Aries, like 2 degrees Aries and 2 degrees Cancer is square. So a lot of stuff when you run a chart and you're getting 28 degrees Leo and 2 degrees Aries, it's going to say it's a square because it's that 30-degree variance or 5 degrees. So, and it's not, and so people ask me, well, what do you think of like an out of sign square like that? And I say to you, as long as it's in friendly signs, that overrules any angle. So if it's telling you, oh, we have a approximately 4-degree square, but my Mars is in Aries and his is in Leo, it's actually friendly signs. I don't consider it a square, even though the angle still is going to be that hard 90-degree angle, okay? It may be a little bit more challenging, you know, squares bring challenges than if it was, say, 5 degrees Leo to 2 degrees Aries, which is going to be a 3-degree trine. All right. So you guys, some of you guys have asked me that. So there that is. But quickly back to the quincunx here. It could also probably do that. So let's say Aries to is going to be, say 2 degrees Aries. We'll just use the same example because sometimes I muddy stuff up that way. 2 degrees Aries to 28 degrees Virgo it's not really a quincunx. It's just because when we're dealing with the minor aspects, see, when I was talking about the trine and the square, those are major aspects. When we're talking about the minor aspects, like a semi-sextile, a quincunx, a semi-square, it's got to be at least within 5 degrees, if not 1 to 2 to be significant. So if you're dealing with 2 degrees Aries and 28 degrees Virgo, yes, those are quincunx signs, but it's such a wide orb. It wouldn't even matter if it was 10 degrees Virgo. Once it's out of like 2 degrees, it's not a quincunx anymore. Just wash it off. They don't count. It wouldn't ever read that way. It's more likely going to read as being, let's see, what's Libra? It might even read as like a opposition or something at that degree. 28 degrees to 2 degrees, it might read as like an out of sign opposition. So instead of, you know, Libra being the opposite sign of Aries, it will say that you have this 4-degree opposition, but you look and it's not Libra, which is the opposite sign of Aries, it's Virgo. So it's never going to read that because no software is going to put in a 26-degree orb on a quincunx, okay? I actually took them out altogether, and I'm actually contemplating putting them back in, semi-sextiles and all the minor aspects. Go to divinetimingdatabase.com, or if you go submit to divinetimingdatabase.com is where you can make your own charts, and it kind of has my structure of, you know, so that you can follow along with me, but it's all, you know, universal. All astrologists could use it. I just sort of put my preferences in there. So some astrologists use like a 6-degree orb on a hard major aspect, like a square. I use a 5-degree orb, things like that. So it has sort of my preferences in there as an astrologist, and my definitions I'm writing in there. So if you go to divinetimingdatabase.com, it's awesome because you can save. It's free. It's like a free tool I made for you guys because I use it for myself. And it also has the main database for divinetimingdatabase.org. And we now have integrated the software in there so you can automatically be matched. So it's pretty cool. But anyways, so I just wanted to touch on what I think of the quincunx. I do think it's significant. Especially the tighter the degree. So if you find that you get along with these random, because remember it goes masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine. So I'm just going to keep using the same example. If you're an Aries, that's a masculine sign. Your opposite sign is always going to be the same polarity. So Libra is a masculine sign, which that can get a little confusing because you would think that it would be male and female opposite, and it is opposite. Male and female are opposite polarities, but your opposite sign is in the same polarity as you. That's like the one little confusing thing there too. I hope people don't get tripped up on, so maybe I clarified that for someone out there. So if you sign is the same polarity, both masculine, then of course the neighboring signs have to be feminine, all right? So if you find like, okay, I'm an Aries and I get along with, or I'm a Gemini and I just get along really well with, other fire and air signs, and I believe that to be true. Again, when it comes to romance, it's all going to come down to your moons, but you may find that all your friends you're a Leo and all your friends are Leos or Aries, you'll see people group up like that. I don't do that so much. It also, I think, depends. If they're a double masculine sign, more likely to do that. For me being like air, fire, and water and earth very prominently, almost all the elements, I have a little more of a varied friend circle and family circle that I click with. But definitely different people for different occasions and things, so if you find like, oh, I always get along with masculine signs, but for some weird reason I get along with these one feminine signs, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, say you're a Leo and you get along great with all the fire signs. Your opposite is Aquarius, for example. So you would be Quincunxes, Pisces, and Capricorn. And you might be like, I hate Capricorns, but for some reason I love Pisces, and I'm a Leo and I don't get along with like any water or earth signs, but Pisces I do. It might be because of the quincunx there, and the particular Pisces you might get along with might be like right on that exact, quincunx orb. So say your sun is 5 degrees Leo, they might all have a planet at 5 degrees Pisces, and you might miss all the other Pisces and just pass right by them. Or say you hate Capricorns, but for some reason there's certain Capricorns you get along with really well, like 1 or 2. They might have a planet 5 degrees Capricorn. Something to look into to kind of be able to actually put it into practice for those of you that like to dig a little deeper. I know a lot of my Virgo moon clients would love that little exercise right there and going and investigating that, because you guys are usually on top of it the most as far as those things go. So I'm going to wrap it up here before the video gets cut off or anything. So I thank you all for joining me. Again, if you want a tarot reading with me or you want me to do your birth chart, your transits for the year, it's rotation411.com. And if you want to, find your perfect match today, time is of the essence, go check out divinetimingdatabase.org. There's a ton of people in there. We've just been streamlining it like crazy. Pluto went into Aquarius and it's all automated now. So you don't have to sit around and wait anymore. You automatically click and chat with your matches if you have one. There's more and more people in there now. So, all right, lots of love and light, y'all.